What are some trades that could change the landscape of fantasy football? Before we get into the trade rumors, don't forget you can find us on flockfantasy.com/endgame. That gives you access to our brand new improved Discord server. You get rankings throughout the offseason for Dynasty and Best Ball and then redraft, bonus articles, extra live streams, and videos only for subscribers. If you sign up using the link below, you'll get 30% off any subscription. Go to flockfantasy.com/endgame to check it out. Believe it or not, the top running back in all of fantasy last year could be on the move. Austin Ekeler has been now rumored as a trade candidate because he and the Chargers cannot reach agreement on an extension. So if Ekeler does switch zip codes, where do you think he winds up?
I think he winds up on the Bills because the Bills have been trying to get this kind of three-dimensional pass catching back for a while now. I mean, last year they went after J.D. McKissic, and then when the Commanders stole J.D. McKissic back, they drafted James Cook. And I know James Cook was pretty good last year, but Ekeler has been great for the last 2 years. I think the Bills could look at Ekeler as a player, as this piece that they feel like they really need in this offense, a weapon out of the backfield they don't have. They're a team, it feels like their window is closing very quickly. They need to try to win and win now. I think they're the perfect fit for Ekeler. I think they make a move for him. I think Austin Ekeler is a Buffalo Bill next year, which would be great for his fantasy value.
That would be great. Now, Bills fans would love that. I think the Bills make a move at running back, but for a different player I'll talk about in a minute. I'm going to surprise you here. I think that a surprise team like the Jaguars make a move for Austin Ekeler. Now, here's the thing. I've mentioned this in a couple of videos and articles. I don't think that the Jags are completely sold on Travis Etienne being a feature back, and we've seen that last year. What if they decide they're going to flip Etienne for a guy who is what we all thought Etienne might be? Like you said, that three-down back, the guy who can catch the ball and get that short yardage, be effective near the goal line. Etienne just didn't get those goal line touches that they know Ekeler can do that. Doug Peterson is a coach who has a Super Bowl on his resume. This team added Calvin Ridley. They want to compete now. They're not rebuilding anymore. Trevor Lawrence is ready to take off. Why not add that final piece to the puzzle and go with a guy like Ekeler? It actually makes more sense. Now a receiver who's been heavily rumored all offseason. Will DeAndre Hopkins get traded? Who do you think would take him?
This feels like one of the most almost certain trades to happen this offseason. It doesn't really make any sense for the Cardinals to hang on to DeAndre Hopkins. So I definitely think he gets traded, and I think he ends up with the Giants because even though you look at the Giants and you think Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, Slayton Hodgins, they got Daniel Bellinger, they got some young players there. They just went out and traded for Darren Waller, who's going to be, I think, 32 this year. That shows me that the Giants are all in right now. They're not looking forward to the future. They are trying to win right now in this window while they have Daniel Jones and a still elite Saquon Barkley. DeAndre Hopkins gives them what they do not have, a true X receiver in this offense for Daniel Jones. We saw it last year when they got in the playoffs and they fell behind and they needed offense. There wasn't any offense. I think they go out and they make a move for DeAndre Hopkins to try to go for a run this year.
Look, we know Hopkins not quite in his prime anymore. That contract is pretty fat. I think he goes to a team that is really desperately in need of a receiver, meaning they don't really have an X, Y, or Z. But what the Ravens could do is fill one of those gaping holes in their offense that maybe this is their way of trying to lure him back and try to keep him there because it sounds like things are ugly. We don't know what's going to happen with Lamar, but maybe getting a guy like DeAndre Hopkins is maybe their final move to try to say, look, we're committed. We want you here. We'll get you some help finally at receiver. I like Rashad Bateman. Don't get me wrong. I've liked him a lot, but still a lot to prove. He needs to stay healthy. Hopkins is a difference maker. They could use him. They need him no matter who their quarterback is, and especially if it's Tyler Huntley or someone less experienced, they're definitely going to need a big target, somebody to help him out. So I'm going to go with Hopkins to Baltimore. I think they could get it done. Now, if you thought Austin Ekeler, the idea of him being traded was a surprise, what about Derrick Henry? Mr. Titan, nobody thought he could potentially be on the move, but all of a sudden, it sounds like the Titans are listening, not shopping, whatever you want to say. They're actually entertaining the thought of moving him. Could a team take on King Henry?
I definitely think there's teams that could, and it kind of makes sense for the Titans to do this. They have to decide, are they going to try to just keep doing the same old thing, Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry, and see if it works, or are they going to start over something fresh? I think they decide to go fresh this year, and I think they kind of throw a bone to Derrick Henry to say, hey, thank you so much for your years of service, for being so good, and they trade him to the Chiefs, which fills two roles. Number one, the Chiefs need a running back like Henry. They need somebody when it's third and short, or they're at the goal line, they can just give him the ball, and they know more often than not he's going to go forward, going to get the first down, going to score that touchdown. But also, it gives Derrick Henry a chance to win a ring. So I think this is kind of a win-win for both sides. The Titans say a thank you to Derrick Henry, send him to the Chiefs, and the Chiefs get the running back they badly need.
It's hard to say the Chiefs really need anything where they're winning championships no matter who's at running back. That would be a great fit, though. But look, I think if a team is going to take on Derrick Henry at his age, it's a team that is in win-now mode that will definitely rely on him, and that would be Buffalo. Like, Buffalo needs something to kind of get over that hump and not just rely on Josh Allen. Let's face it, we saw last year, toward the end of the season in the playoffs, Josh Allen, as great as he is, he might not be able to carry that team, that offense, by himself. Okay, healthy or not, he made some poor decisions, a lot of turnovers in the second half of the season. Maybe they really do need some help in the running game. We've been talking for years about them getting this high-end running back. They haven't done it. Why not get Derrick Henry and just ease back on the passing game? And you have those guys like James Cook to help out on third downs and passing downs. Derrick Henry doesn't have to touch the ball 30 times a game. It's a perfect fit, and this is a team that really needs to do something to keep that window open as far as championships. There's a lot of competition in the AFC. Maybe this is exactly what Buffalo needs. Let's talk running back again. Dalvin Cook has been a fantasy stud for years. Does he still have it? And is there a team that's still willing to commit to him if Minnesota continues to restructure this roster?
With them bringing back Alexander Mattison, the reports are that now the Vikings are going to look to move Dalvin Cook. Easier said than done, but I do think they actively are trying to trade him. And I think a team that makes a lot of sense for Dalvin Cook is your Dolphins. Because, yes, they re-signed Raheem Mostert and they re-signed Jeff Wilson. I think they even re-signed Myles Gaskin. I'm not sure. But, look, Raheem Mostert, 32 years old. Jeff Wilson, always banged up. They need a difference maker at this position that they can count on week in and week out. They've made some good strides on defense, bringing in Jalen Ramsey. That defense should be much improved. If Tua is healthy with Tyreek and Waddle, this is a team that contend. They might look at Dalvin Cook as the missing piece. I don't think it's going to take a lot to get Dalvin Cook. I think the Dolphins do it. I think he's on your Miami Dolphins next year.
I would really like that a lot, and it actually makes a lot of sense, maybe more sense than the team I'm going to go with. I mean, he doesn't have to be this, every down back if he goes into that system. It's almost too good to be true, so that's why I'm going to say it won't happen. So I think that Cincinnati is going to move on from Joe Mixon. That's a move that does make sense. He's been declining in production and efficiency the last couple of years, all sorts of other issues. If they break ties with Mixon, they still need a high-end running back. Maybe they're the team that makes a move for Dalvin Cook. It's kind of a seamless transition right there. And Cook is a guy who, even though there's been some minor injury problems last couple of years, he's still just as good. He's still more efficient than Joe Mixon. Remember, they already let Samaje Perine go in free agency. If they cut Mixon, which makes sense financially, they're going to need somebody to transition and keep them competitive. So Cook, to me, makes sense because they can get at least another year or two out of him and be competitive. Now let's talk receiver. Denver, rumored to be in the trade market. Start with Jerry Jeudy, a guy who hasn't quite lived up to his potential. Could he be on the move, and if so, where?
I mean, it sounds like Denver's trying to trade every wide receiver they have. Jerry Jeudy getting a ton of interest because, of course, he's still young. He's a former first-round pick. I think he goes to the Vikings. I think the Vikings are a perfect spot for Jerry Jeudy. We saw in that playoff game last year, the Vikings desperately need another wide receiver so teams can't just double, triple team Justin Jefferson and make, KJ Osborne and TJ Hawkinson beat him. And Justin Jefferson, a true X receiver. Jeudy not. Judy's a guy you can line up anywhere on the field, in the slot, on the outside, on the line, off the line. Perfect complement to Justin Jefferson. I think if the Vikings went out and got Jerry Jeudy, that would really open up this offense even more, make it almost impossible for defenders to completely shut down Justin Jefferson. I think, and he's still relatively young, so this is the Vikings aren't a team in like an absolute desperation must win now position. He's still young. I think he goes to the Vikings.
That makes a lot of sense. And again, I'm almost right there with you. I'm just going to pick a different guy for that spot. But Jerry Jeudy has been now rumored with a couple of teams interested in him, and why not? Like you said, still young. I think the Patriots make the most sense here. Is a team that we know has looked into adding another receiver, and you say, well, they just got Juju. Yeah, that's just an even trade. Even if we'll call it even, because a lot of people think Jacoby Myers was better than Juju. They want Mac Jones to work. They're going to need some help at receiver. Jerry Jeudy makes sense. He's a guy who's got a couple years experience, can help out a quarterback by getting open. They're not going to have to invest too heavily. I know DeAndre Hopkins has also been linked to the Patriots. That is a big time investment for a team that I don't know if you can say is right there ready to be a Super Bowl contender again with Mac Jones at quarterback. So to me, Jerry Jeudy is the fit. And Denver receiver number 2, Cortland Sutton. I mean, I guess it makes sense Sean Payton wants to have his own identity on this team. Could they flip both of their receivers?
I'd be shocked if they traded both of them. But assuming it's not Jeudy and it is Cortland Sutton, I think he goes to the Bears. I think the Bears make perfect sense for Cortland Sutton because, A, he's not going to require like massive draft capital. He's still young enough. I think he's going to be 27 this year, so he's still young enough for a Bears team that's very young right now. They just went out and got DJ Moore, who I think is great. But DJ Moore is not an X receiver. He's another guy kind of like Jerry Jeudy. You want to line him up all over the field. You want to get him the ball in space. And say what you want about Cortland Sutton, whether you think he's good or bad or whatever. He is a true X receiver, and that's what the Bears need now. So I think he's a perfect complement to DJ Moore and what the Bears are doing in this offense. He's not going to require a huge haul to get. I think for the Bears, it's a low-risk investment. I think they do it.
Imagine the Bears just keep piling on receivers. That offense could be scary. I think the Vikings make sense for Cortland Sutton because the reasons you mentioned, they do need a number 2 guy. They need someone who can draw more attention away from Justin Jefferson. Cortland Sutton as a bigger receiver, a guy who can help run some more vertical routes, but also be that red zone threat. I think Cortland Sutton is the guy that would go to Minnesota and be a better fit into that offense. And there are always some surprising names that get flipped. You don't expect these players to go, but nobody's talking about Mike Evans. Could Mike Evans actually be traded with a Bucs team that now all of a sudden looks a little bit like a rebuild?
It makes sense from the Bucs' point of view. I mean, you're going to have Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask, I guess, battling for QB1 job next year. You're not contending next year. Maybe you look at the division and think we can win the division, but that's really all. You're not going to go deep in the playoffs. I'm going to throw another bone the Chiefs' way. I think the Chiefs make a deal for Mike Evans. They need this type of receiver. They need this deep threat receiver. They tried to do it last year with MVS. He's not that guy. I think they go out, they get Mike Evans. This offense needs that. The rich just get richer, I guess, in my world, because they get Derrick Henry and Mike Evans.
Mike Evans might be the guy who pushes the button here because a lot of times you think, well, maybe the team doesn't want to trade him. They have no reason. Mike Evans might look around and say, hey, it's time to move on. I want to go to a team that could at least be better, contend. A team I haven't mentioned yet, but definitely could be in the market for another receiver is the Cleveland Browns. We know Deshaun Watson, his major investment there. They're going to want to pass the ball. They're going to give him more options. Based on the way last year ended for him, it was ugly. All right, and he's probably going to say, hey, I need some help here. Amari Cooper is good. Donovan Peoples-Jones is pretty good, but do you really have another true elite wideout? I think they need to add somebody like Evans, and Evans might look and say, hey, get me out of here. I don't want to be catching passes from Baker Mayfield or trying to catch passes from Baker Mayfield. So this is a move that probably nobody sees coming, but don't be surprised if something like this does happen. Any of those trades could shake up the NFL. We'll see if they happen. But here's some trades that you should be making right now if you play Dynasty.